Hi, I just want to show you a few tips and tricks that I have learned while making these felt food items so that you can get started. So once you have your pieces cut, you're ready to start sewing. Some will need detail stitching, like the zucchini needs the stitching. So do this on both sides before you start putting it together. For the eggplant and the tomato, you need to sew on the green part first, but make sure that you're not putting it down low, because when you put it together, it makes it really thick and then the purple shows. So you want to bring it up high enough, and you're just going to sew along the bottom. And this is where you need to pay attention before you start sewing, because if you put them back to back, that's not lined up. So you need to make sure that they're flipped so that they will be lined up when you put them together. And it looks like the green part is pretty close too. You can always trim up any uneven sides after you're done sewing. But now that looks, you're just going to be sewing the green parts together, and that will be a lot easier. Now that I have the two green pieces sewn together, I'm going to align them up, and I will just sew around the green part with my green thread. Then I will continue with purple and go all the way around and stop about here to leave an opening to stuff it. Now, when it comes to stuffing, you will probably use more than you think. So break it into pieces and start putting it in your food item, and whether the side or the bottom are always usually the easier places to put it in. And so that's a good chunk for the bottom. You want to make sure that it is full enough, and you don't want it like loose. You want it to make sure that it's filled out and puffy. But if you put too much in, it becomes hard to sew. So you can move it around as you're stuffing. I'm going to move it up towards the top now. If you have a hard time getting your fingers in, you can always take something longer and push. But if you compact it too much, then it becomes really hard and stiff. So you still want to leave it loose. You'll figure it out once you play around with it. Now, I'm going to just put a little more than I should in to show you that if it's too full, it becomes hard to close. And you need to be able to sew this shut with your machine and get your foot in there. So you want to take it out if you get it too full. And you can push it hard to get everything out of the way, and then sort of move it around once it's sewn. So I'm really pushing it down so that I am able to close this gap. And you can pin it if you want. You'll notice that I didn't pin any of my other pieces. I have a walking foot on my machine that really helps when sewing felt. But it is not necessary, but it's good for quilting and with felt items because it doesn't slide, the pieces don't slide around as much. So that gives me a pretty good flat surface now to sew, and just make sure you backstitch just to sew that part closed. Now, as I get it into my machine, it is kind of hard because there's a lot of extra felt or stuffing right here, so it's giving me a hard time getting and putting my foot down. So you just are going to need to move it around as best you can. If you need to take out some stuffing or push it down further up here, You just want to be able to get your foot in cleanly so that you can securely sew it closed. I probably don't need that pin right now. And if you need to, you can always just take out so make sure that you back stitch here. There we go. And you can go slow and just turn the wheel and get it, because you don't want to miss the bottom if it's not aligned. Sometimes they can get unaligned. So after it's all sewn, you need to go around and check all of the seams to make sure on both sides that it's sewn and it's caught the felt. There's one part, let's see, right there, do you see there's a little hole right there? So I need to go back over that and stitch it so it's a little bit closer and closes that gap. Then you can also trim any edges that where the felt is not even. You can trim them up, but this looks pretty good. Now I'll talk more about the round fruits and vegetables, or the ones that have things to go inside. So this needs detail stitching, so I'm going to stitch the curve on the plum. You can outline it with like chalk or the tracing pin, and then you're gonna probably have to work to get it off, or you can just wing it and go for the curve. So once you have it done on both sides, so I have it, I'll do it on both sides, I'm going to put my stem and leaf in between, so the leaves you can kind of fold at the bottom so that it gives it a 3D effect. Get it lined up, and obviously there will be kind of a lot down here. You don't want the stem or any, like, you know, like your carrot top or your pineapple top, anything that you're sticking in, you want to make sure that it looks proportionate. I left extra rooms so that there would be plenty underneath. So when you do have these things to stick in, you're going to start sewing at the bottom, and you're going to go around and then stop so that you'll be stuffing on the bottom or the side. You just don't want to start sewing at the top. Okay, you're ready to stuff. I'm going to show you an example of something that is not full enough. Okay, like if I were to just do that much, that's not very full. It's missing up here. It's just barely padded. So you want to do more than that so that it's not loose. So just push it up. Now you can see that it's full, but there's still a lot of room down here. So that leaves me room to close it, but it's nice and full that way. So let's try it. So here we have a nice filled plum with no holes, back stitched, nice and secure. So if you have any questions along the way, feel free to ask me. I'm here to help, and happy sewing!